Hi everyone, Emily here, and today I have for you my December wrap up. So I still have a couple of videos that need to come out before I start filming this. I still have my December wrap up, and then I also have my January TBR along with my 2023 goals. So my 2023 goals and my January TBR are combined into one video. But I wanted to get the December wrap up done before my TBR. And I was going to film this yesterday, and I had a migraine. So I get migraines when the weather fluctuates crazily. So we've been at and then 40 degrees, and now it's like 63 degrees today. So the weather has been up and down. And then also my sleeping has been completely thrown off. One thing that they tell you to do with migraines is keep a regular sleep pattern. Like, I typically don't sleep in, even on days off, and that has really helped me manage migraines, but I've been staying up late, and so that's been the challenge. At any rate, long story short, I'm finally here filming my December wrap-up. The lighting you're going to see is going to go in and out. We've had a lot of fog, and it was just really dreary, and now we've got some sun, but it's also like 3:40, so the light is going to go in and out. I apologize for that. But just a little stats before I get started. I've got my spreadsheet here. In December, I read 9 books, and that's not counting a novella that I read that I was like, on. I didn't enter that into the numbers. So that was 2,975 pages. So it was an okay reading month. As far as like quality, it was not a good reading month. Oh, and I should add, I listened to a book that was 5.5 hours long. So that, I normally don't listen to books, but it was a book that I had read several times over the years. My average rating for books was 3.68 stars. So that tells you it was not the greatest reading month. And actually it says, and I had 2 rereads. Yearly stats though, overall, I had set a goal of 70 books for the year, and I beat that. My tracker says that I actually read 86 books, and actually I didn't track some books. And I was thinking about it, like some books I read like over the summer, and really I probably could add 40 to that number. So probably about 126 books I actually read. And then pages read, if we're just looking at the 86 books that I actually tracked, was 31,017. And then overall, at the end of the year, when things closed out, I had 573 books total owned, 234 read, 339 unread. So 40.84% read. That number has changed because I have unhauled some books, which there will be an unhaul coming this Saturday, because I had to unhaul some books because it needed to be done. All right, so books read. Let me see if I can find it. All right, so we started off the month. Hopefully you don't fall, because my laptop is now on my arm of the sofa. So the first book I read was it was a bind up of The Gingerbread Cookie Murder by Joanne Fluke, The Dangers of Gingerbread Cookies by Laura Levine, and then Gingerbread Cookies and Gunshots by Leslie Myers. I enjoyed pretty much anything by Joanne Fluke. So I did like that one. The other 2 were okay. Gingerbread Cookies and Gunshots, the last one by Leslie Myers, I thought was but the first 2 I enjoyed. I liked it. I won't reread it again, but it was a light, nice, fun read. I did not give this a rating because I thought it was kind of hard. There are 3 different books, So it was hard to just pick one rating. The next book I read was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. And I read, like, all these books I read for the Reindeer Readathon. But this book, the prompt was for, like, an overhyped book. And I was hoping I would enjoy it. I did. It was a nice, light read. Like, I flew through this book in, like, a weekend. I gave it 4 stars. It was... I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought I gave it a little bit lower of a rating. There was like a little twist that I caught on like pretty quickly. So Jason Dessen, he gets like kidnapped, and then he loses his memory, or like his life is just not his own, and he's trying to figure out like what is going on, why has his life completely changed. And I kind of got one of the twists. I didn't get all of the twists. And it was good. It just wasn't great. Like, I've heard him compared to Michael Crichton, and I'm not going to lie, I loved Jurassic Park. And I thought Jurassic Park was fantastic. This was okay. I do want to read more. I want to read Recursion, and I do have Upgrade. So I do want to read those, but, like, I'm not going to read this again. Then the next book is actually a book that I listened to on audio, and that is Hawk O'Toole's Woman by Sandra Brown. And that was for the Reindeer Readathon, was like a trope that you like. And so Hawk O'Toole's Woman Hawk O'Toole's Hostage. So Miranda is our main female protagonist, and she is on this train ride, like old Western train ride reenactment with her son. And on this train ride, Hawk O'Toole, he comes on with some of his friends, and they pretend that they're bandits, and they end up kidnapping her son, Scott. And everyone on the train thinks that they're play acting until they start to take Scott. And that's when Miranda's kind of like, something's not right. And so she, like, goes with them. Basically forces them to take her with them. There are reasons why he kidnaps Scott. And so Hawk O'Toole is a Native American, and he's kind of like the tribal leader. And there are reasons why he kidnaps them that I'm not going to go into. They're spoilery. It's kind of supposed to be like an enemies to lovers, also kind of Stockholm Syndrome-y romance. And I've read it several times over the course of the years. Like, this came out in like the late 80s, maybe early 90s. I can't remember when. And I've read it several times over the decades. This time I read it and I gave it 1 star. And mind you, I used to love this book. Gave it 1 star. Because he is horrible to her. Horrible. And she doesn't like it, obviously. But then, like, oh, he's taking care of his tribe, and oh, that's so wonderful. But he is horrible to her throughout pretty much the entire book. Until, like, the very, very end. No. Sorry. No. Just how he treats her, no. So, I'm glad I listened to it. It was a quick, easy read. It got my team some points for the readathon. But holy cow, no. The next book I read was A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And this I actually, this book has the chimes and the cricket on the hearth as well in it. I did not read those books. I just read A Christmas Carol, and I actually read it on my e-reader to get the bonus points for that. So I used it as the prompt for like ugly cover and then e-reader. So I gave Christmas Carol 3.5 stars. I don't know why I only gave it 3.5 stars. There was some really good stuff in it. And I think, and I've read it before, but I think maybe the reason why I gave Christmas Carol 3.5 stars was because I kind of read it in piecemeal. I read it at school on my lunch breaks. And so I think like and I just like read it in snatches. And then the last like 20 plus pages, and it's a 65-page book. The last like 20 pages I read during like downtime while taking tickets at a basketball game, not gonna lie. So I think because of that, it kind of suffered for the reading. But I mean, I did enjoy it. I think it's a nice tradition to have to read A Christmas Carol. I mean, I enjoy watching The Muppets Christmas Carol and Mickey Mouse Christmas Carol. So, and because it's so short, it sticks, the movies stick pretty close to the text. Then the next book, I actually switched out. I just kind of looked at things and realized like I'm probably wasn't going to have time to read a longer book like Skyward for the prompt that dealt with like celestial like themed. So instead I wrote Midnight Without a Moon by Linda Williams Jackson, and this cover is just absolutely beautiful. And this book is what is her name? Rose Lee Carter. So this book is about Rose Lee Carter, and she is 13. She's growing up in the South. The summer that Emmett Till is lynched and murdered brutally. And so she actually, it's actually referenced and is a big plot point in this book. And so she grows up, her mom marries another man, and they take off to Chicago. But her mom does not take her with her. She and her younger brother are left behind, and her grandmother raises her. And she is the granddaughter of a sharecropper, and she helps out in the fields. And she's very dark-skinned, and that's actually the Midnight Without a Moon is in reference to how dark she is. That her skin has been compared to Midnight Without a Moon. And her grandmother treats her differently than her cousin, who is lighter skinned. Like, her cousin doesn't have to do any work. She can sit and read magazines, whereas she does all the chores and she has to work in the fields. And she dreams and longs to leave the South, to move either to Chicago with her mother or St. Louis with her aunt. And then Emmett Till happens. And I'm not going to go into everything, but I did really enjoy this book. This is a middle grade book, I want to say. Maybe young adults. And I gave it 4 stars. I wanted to read this before I brought it to school, but this will go into my classroom library. Then the next book I read was Unspoken by Dee Henderson. And I used this for the reindeer, all of these books I used for the reindeer readathon, I should say. This was my one book that I could figure out that ended in the digit 1. The prompt was use a random number generator and read a book with that ends in that prompt. So this ends in that digit. So this ended in 461. And this ended up actually being a reread. It's a Christian, like, romance thriller where, so Charlotte Graham, she was kidnapped years ago and was held hostage for 4 years. And, like, actually, like, 3 miles away from, like, where she lived and grew up. And she never told anyone about what happened. And 2 of her kidnappers were killed. And so they think like, the cops think like it's done, the issue is resolved, but she's never said anything to anyone about it. Well, then she inherits some things, and some of these is a big amount of coins. And so she meets like a coin dealer because she needs to get rid of these coins that she inherited from her grandfather. I enjoyed it. It was a good story. But, like, man, it was just so, like, the wealth that she owns, that she inherited from her grandfather, it was so over the top. Like, we're talking billions and billions of dollars. And like the amount that she makes a day is like millions of dollars because of the stocks and the investments. Like it was just so ridiculously over the top. So take that for what you will. I don't know. I think I give this 3.5 stars. Yeah. I mean, it was a nice, enjoyable read, but like, yeah. The next book I read was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I loved this book. I gave this 5 stars. And so this is a world where there's 2 sisters, and the oldest sister is promised to marry a god king. And but her father is worried that there's going to be a war. So rather than sending the oldest sister to marry this god king, thinking like there's wars coming between our 2 kingdoms, and I'm worried, I don't want my oldest daughter to die, he sends the youngest daughter, who has no training to become a god king's wife. She goes off to marry this god king. And so that's the premise. And then the older sister is like, nope, I need to go and save my sister. So she goes to save her sister. The magic system is all about breath. So like you can breathe out and like call things like inanimate objects to life and then take that breath back. So you don't lose your magic if you can keep that item and take the breath back from them. I really enjoyed it. There were some twists that I just did not expect coming. There were also some just stinking funny moments I just thought were just so funny, and I literally laughed out loud. I love this book, and I gave it 5 stars, and I'm now excited that I can now start working my way through Stormlight Archives. So I'm working through the Cosmere in order, and I needed to get through this, and then I could start Way of Kings. Sorry. Then the next book I read was The Hidden Oracle, and the prompt for this was start a new series. I also used this. I started my Flourish and Blots reading challenge early, so I used this for deals with archery because Apollo, he is the god of archery. And actually, I'm sorry, The Trials of Apollo is a series by Rick Riordan, and book 1 is The Hidden Oracle. And I also thought this was funny. So Apollo comes to Earth, and he gets punished by Zeus for something that he did. I don't remember if we are told what he did, but he is punished, and he has to go to Earth as a human being. And he's a 16-year-old pimply wimp of a kid. But he still has the mind of a god. So we get all of the arrogance of the god, where he's like, well, naturally, you should be bowing down to me. And like, why aren't you offering sacrifices? And like, he's got the mind of an ancient Greek god, where like people should be burning sacrifices to him and bowing down to him. And of course, I did this so wonderful. And like, Apollo is also the god of like music and poetry, so he'll like take pop culture references and be like, oh yes, and I helped this Beyonce make this song, for example. At first I didn't quite jive with the snark, and then I just thought it was stinking hilarious. Like, there's this one line where he goes, I don't understand the purpose of the seeds, but it was comforting to know that in a dire emergency, I could hit people with my ukulele while Meg planted geraniums. Like, how funny is that? How funny is that? So this is the start of the series, and they are trying to find the Oracle of the Delphi, because she's hidden, she can't issue prophecies, and in order for him to like go back and gain back his godhood, like he needs to be able to, one, serve this demigod, and then also like go on quests. But you can't go on a quest without a prophecy. So that's why they're trying to find these oracles, so that way they can get the prophecies. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading more in that series. Then the next book, I actually substituted out. I was going to read The Golem and the Genie, and I was wanting desperately to finish the reading challenge, and I didn't know if I would be able to finish all of the prompts for the readathon if I read The Golem and the Genie. So I switched out for Sophie's Heart, which is a reread. I use this as the prompt for like the fancy script on the cover. And this is, I've read this numerous times over the years. This came out, just so you're aware, this came out in 1995. So it came out in 1995. So yes, it's dated Christian fiction romance. Keep that in mind. So it does read like where Sophie just has like a really solid, strong faith. And sometimes it comes off as like, you are so perfect. Like, I can never be that perfect. And so sometimes that just kind of frustrated me. And it's frustrated me throughout the years because I am not perfect. Like, I question, I doubt, I make mistakes. And she comes off as just like perfect. And like her sin struggles are just like, occasionally she loses her temper. But even when she loses her temper, she realizes that she's losing her temper and then will apologize and fix it. And I'm like, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. This story is that she leaves Czechoslovakia to come to America, and she ends up being hired by a widower. He's got 3 children, and his wife died in a car accident about like less than a year, about 9 months, about when she is hired to work for them, and just basically helping the family through their grief and getting, taking care of the kids and making sure the house runs smoothly, because he works construction and is busy and overworks because he's dealing with grief that way. And of course they fall in love. So it's a light read. I enjoy it. It's got nostalgia. It's got nostalgia for me. And then the last book I read was a novella. So I read in this bind-up, the bind-up is called 5 Golden Rings. I read the first one by Fern Michaels, which is called A Bright Red Ribbon. And Morgan Ames, she was dating this guy. I don't even remember his name. She's dating this guy, and on Christmas Eve, she thinks like he's going to propose to her. Well, he doesn't. He says, we should go on a break for 2 years, and in 2 years' time, let's meet again under this tree. Okay? So we need to take a break for 2 years. So she pines for this guy for 2 years and is like, I have to go meet him. It's Christmas Eve. I have to go meet him. It's a bad snowstorm. Her parents are like, don't come home. And she's like, nope, I got to go home. I'm going to drive. I got all-wheel drive. No worries. I'm going to drive home, meet this guy. She packs up her car. She has like all these gifts for him, which I'm like, dude, what are you doing? She gets into a car accident and stranded in a blizzard, and this dog finds her. He's carrying a ribbon in his mouth and guides her back to this cottage where she meets, I don't remember his name, Matthew, some dude. You can tell this is really memorable for me. And he, what is his name? Well, his sister's name is Marcy. Or was Marcy, I should say. So, I don't know. She gets rescued by this guy. He had been in a car accident and is now, has to use a wheelchair to get around. He has to go through all these surgeries. His sister died in the car accident. And they have this magical Christmas Eve night. And then they never see each other again, but he like gives her his dog to take care of at one point in time because he's going to have another surgery. And he just like literally drops off the dog and she takes care of him. And then like a year later, they meet again. And it's like, oh man, we're so in love. you spent like 3 days, if that, together. No, 2 days because of the blizzard. And then like he drops off the dog and she uproots her life for this guy because she can't have a dog in her apartment. So she's like, oh, well, I'm going to live in my office. But no, she doesn't do that. She like sells the office, finds a new place to live, all so that way she can take care of this dog. And she takes care of this dog for months and months and months. Like, what? It was so bad. It was so bad. And I was just like, what? Like, who does that? Who does that? I don't know. But it was so bad that I was like, I don't, even though the other books are by different authors, I didn't want to keep reading. We're done. We're moving that on. So glad I found this for free at my library. So that is it. Like I said, it was quantity. I had good quantity, but quality was not there. So that's why in January I just said no readathons, because I want to read good books that I'm going to enjoy and not, and like, yes, I'm glad I read them because all of them except for Sophie's Heart and Christmas Carol were books that were new. So it was nice to like read the books and then unhaul to like get things out of my house. But I want to read books that I'm going to enjoy and that I'll enjoy and that will be meaningful, if that makes sense. At any rate, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? What was a highlight for you for December? And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.